What's up, guys, and welcome back to Will Sports Talk. So this video is going to be my Week 5 recap and my Week 6 predictions. So with that being said, let's get started. The first game I want to discuss is going to be USC and Colorado. Now, USC ended up pulling this game out 48-41. USC quarterback Caleb Williams, he is continuing to show why he's still the Heisman favorite. He actually went 30 for 40, passed for 403 yards, 6 touchdowns. That is actually, he tied his career high. But he also threw one pick. Halfback Marshawn Lloyd, he had 13 carries, 84 yards, and a touchdown. USC, they finished the game with 95 rushing yards. Wide receiver Taj Washington, he led the team with 8 receptions, 117 yards, and a touchdown. Defensively for USC, Mason Cobb, he led the team with 13 tackles. He had 11 solo tackles. He also had 2 tackles for loss. Cornerback Christian Rowland, he had a pick. Jumping over to Colorado, Shedeur Sanders, he is continuing to ball out for Colorado. He actually went 30 for 45. He passed for 371 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did have a pick in this game. Halfback Anthony Hankerson, he led the team with 16 carries, 74 yards, and a touchdown. Colorado finished this game with 193 rushing yards. Wide receiver Amarian Miller, he led the team with 7 receptions, 196 yards, and a touchdown. Defensively for Colorado, Roderick Ward, he led the team with 9 tackles. He had 5 solo tackles. Safety Cameron Silman, he had 1 pick. Now, the big thing going into this game is Colorado is still without Travis Hunter. Their star two-way player plays both wide receiver and defensive back. I believe if Colorado would have had Travis Hunter in this game, I believe Colorado would have found a way to pull this out. Because that dude is a baller. He makes big plays on both sides of the ball. So not having him in this game was really a big hit for Colorado. The way this game started out, it kind of looked like it was fixing to be a blowout by USC. USC was actually up 34-7 in the second quarter. But after halftime, in that second half, that's when Colorado's offense and Shedeur Sanders woke up. They absolutely balled out in that second half. The second half actually turned out to be a back-and-forth battle, and it actually ended up with Colorado scoring the final 14 points of the game. Colorado actually outscored USC 27-14 in the second half, but it still wasn't enough to pull out the victory. Some major storylines in this game, I guess you could say, that led to USC winning this game. The big one, clock management, questionable play calling. There at the end of the game, that was a huge part in this victory for USC. Penalties, they played a big part in this loss. Colorado had 7 penalties for 60 yards, including an interception in the end zone that was actually called back because of a penalty. And at the end of this game, I mentioned the clock management, poor play calling. At the end of this game, there was like a minute left in this game, or inside 2 minutes left in this game. Colorado had no timeouts. They had the ball, looking to drive down the field and tie the game. They are running the ball up the gut constantly. Yes, they're gaining yards every now and then, but they're running the ball constantly up the middle, in the middle of the field. You don't run the ball in the middle of the field with less than 2 minutes playing a game and you're trying to win. You've got to throw the ball towards the sideline, get out of bounds, reserve that clock. That is very poor decision making by Deion Sanders. He has got to get better. He really costed Colorado that game. Because if he would have made better decisions on that final drive, Colorado probably could have tied it up, went in overtime, and ended up winning that game. But overall, it was I'm going to say sloppy win for USC. But with this defense, week in and week out, is going to be sloppy. It was a good win for USC. USC, they're not making a championship if they continue with these defensive woes that they have. When they meet Oregon and when they meet Washington, their defense has got to wake up, or it's fixing to get ugly for USC. Next game I want to talk about is Nebraska and Michigan. Now, Michigan actually won this game 45-7. Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy, he went 12 for 16, had 156 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, did not throw a pick in this game. Star running back for Michigan, Blake Corum, he was getting it going on the ground. He had 16 carries, 74 yards, and a touchdown. Michigan actually ended this game with 249 rushing yards. Wide receiver Roman Wilson, he led the team with 4 receptions, 58 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Defensively for Michigan, Josiah Stewart, he led the team with 5 tackles, had 3 solo tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss. Defensive lineman Kenneth Grant, he had 1 pick. Jumping over to Nebraska. Nebraska quarterback Heinrich Haarberg, he went 14 for 25, 199 yards. He didn't throw a touchdown. He did throw 1 pick. So Nebraska's still got to get that quarterback situation figured out, because obviously it's not Haarberg and it was not Jeff Sims either, because Jeff Sims was not looking too good when he was in there. But wide receiver Joshua Fleeks, he actually led the team in rushing. He had 1 carry for 74 yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver Billy Kemp, he led the team in receptions. He had 4 receptions for 61 yards. He did not have a touchdown in this game. Defensively for Nebraska, Nick Henrich, he led the team with 9 tackles. He had 5 solo tackles in this game. Nebraska actually came into this game ranked 2nd nationally in rushing defense. So those 249 rushing yards that they gave up hurt Nebraska bad. Nebraska's got a lot to fix moving forward. Just a little recap of this game. Michigan really dominated this game from start to finish. Nebraska's only points in this game were really a garbage time touchdown there at the end of the game. The offensive line for Michigan in this game probably played their best game of the season so far. They did not allow a sack. They only allowed 1 tackle for loss. Michigan also played really well on defense. They generated 4 sacks and had 2 forced fumbles. Overall, it was a very good all-around performance for Michigan, a very good win for Michigan. My third game I want to talk about is Kansas and Texas. Now, Texas won this game 40-14. It was not all that pretty the whole game. Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers, he went 25 for 35. He passed for 325 yards, a touchdown. He did throw a pick in this game. Halfback Jonathan Brooks, he is starting to prove why he is the number 1 back at Texas. He had 21 carries for 218 yards and 2 touchdowns. Texas ended this game with 336 rushing yards for the game. Wide receiver A.D. Mitchell, transfer from Georgia. He led the team with 10 receptions, 141 yards, and a touchdown. Defensively for Texas, Jalen Ford, he led the team with 7 tackles. He had 5 solo tackles and 1 tackle for loss. I'm jumping over to Kansas. Kansas quarterback Jason Bean, he did not have a very good game at all. He went 9 for 21. He passed for 136 yards and a touchdown. Halfback Devin Neal, he led the team with 8 carries, 45 yards and no touchdowns, Wide receiver Trevor Wilson, he led the team in receptions. He had 1 reception, 58 yards and a touchdown. Defensively for Kansas, O.J. Burrows, he led the team with 13 tackles. He had 9 solo tackles and 1 tackle for loss. Linebacker Cornell Wheeler, he had 1 pick. A little recap of this game. Texas really, after a slow start in the first half, they really dominated that second half. Texas was only leading this game 13-7 at halftime, but after halftime, they really turned it on. And one of the big keys in this game that led to this victory for Texas was 3rd and 4th down. 3rd and 4th down played a major difference in this game. Kansas went 0-8 on 3rd down and 0-2 on 4th down versus Texas. Texas went 9 for 15 on 3rd down and 2 for 2 on 4th down. So like I said, 3rd and 4th down played a major role in this game. The running game is starting to look really dangerous for Texas with Jonathan Brooks in the backfield. He is starting to be a very good player, a very reliable player for Texas. I believe he will be a very reliable player for Texas moving forward. One concern for Texas, though, is the kicking game. They are really struggling with the kicking game. Texas missed 2 field goals in this game. And Texas is just 9-14 on the season on field goals. And Texas is 2 for 6 on field goals from 40 plus. So Texas has got to get that kicking game fixed if they want to compete for a Big 12 title. And at this point, we need to be talking about a college football playoff for Texas. But they've got to get that figured out if they want to achieve that, because they're eventually going to run into some games to where it's gonna come down to a clutch game-winning field goal. So they've got to get that figured out. My fourth game I want to talk about is Notre Dame and Duke. Notre Dame actually won this game 21-14. Notre Dame quarterback Sam Hartman, he played really well in this game. He went 15 for 30, passed for 222 yards. He didn't throw a touchdown, but he didn't throw a pick either. Halfback Audric Estim, he led the team with 18 carries, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. Notre Dame, they actually finished this game with 159 rushing yards. Wide receiver Mitchell Evans, he led the team with 6 receptions, 134 yards. Didn't have a touchdown in this game. Defensively for Notre Dame, Howard Cross III, he led the team with 13 tackles, 3 solo tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, and 3.5 tackles for loss. Safety Xavier Watts, he had 1 pick in this game. Defense recovered a Lincoln Riley fumble late in the game to actually seal the win for Notre Dame. Duke quarterback Riley Leonard, he went 12 for 27, 134 yards, a touchdown. He did throw a pick in this game. Riley Leonard actually also led the team in rushing with 18 carries for 88 yards. Unfortunately for Riley Leonard, he was forced to exit this game early. He suffered a high ankle sprain in the final minutes. It was actually during that fumble. And he is unfortunately going to miss a few weeks at least for Duke. That's about all we know right now. We don't know a for sure timetable, but we do know it's going to be a few weeks at least until he is able to return. Halfback Jaquez Moore, he led the team with 7 tackles, 51 yards. He didn't have a touchdown in this game. Wide receiver Jordan Moore, he led the team with 4 receptions, 67 yards, and a touchdown. Defensively for Duke, Trey Freeman, he led the team with 13 tackles, had 5 solo tackles, 0.5 sacks, and a tackle for loss. A little recap in this game. Although this game really looked like a back and forth kind of deal, especially in the second half. Duke was actually down 10-0 going into halftime, but they were able to climb back in this game after halftime. Duke really outplayed Notre Dame in this game. The thing about this game, the reason this flipped towards Notre Dame was turnovers. Turnovers played a really big part in this game. Duke had an interception and a fumble late in the game that took points off the board for Duke. Duke has got to get those turnovers cleaned up if they want to continue to win and possibly compete for an ACC title, which I think is very doable for Duke this year. As for Notre Dame, field goals are a problem. Notre Dame missed a big field goal late in that game. Penalties are also a problem for Notre Dame. Notre Dame had 12 penalties for 70 yards versus Duke's 2 penalties for 28 yards. So Notre Dame has got to get that penalty situation and that field goal situation figured out if they want to continue to win and hopefully get to a New Year's Six Bowl. Because honestly, I'm going to be honest, Notre Dame is a good team. Very good team, but with that loss to Ohio State and that schedule that Notre Dame has, Notre Dame's not making a playoff. I think the playoff conversation is completely over for Notre Dame. I think the best they can hope for right now is a New Year's Six with the schedule. But it was a good win for Notre Dame. My fifth and final game I want to talk about is Ole Miss versus LSU. Now, Ole Miss won this game 55-49. An absolute shootout. Ole Miss quarterback, he played exceptionally well. Jackson Dart, he went 26 for 39. He passed for 389 yards. Had 4 touchdowns. He did not throw a pick in this game. Star running back Quinshon Judkins, he is back to his old self like I thought he would be this whole year. He's finally starting to get there. He had 33 carries, 177 yards, and a touchdown. Ole Miss actually finished this game with 317 rushing yards. Wide receiver Trey Harris, he led the team with 8 receptions, 153 yards, and a touchdown. Defensively for Ole Miss, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to do it, but I should not waste my time talking about these two defenses because there's not much to talk about at all when it comes to defense in this game. But defensively for Ole Miss, John Shoulders Jr., he led the team with 8 tackles, 4 solo tackles. Jumping over to LSU, quarterback Jayden Daniels, he's playing exceptionally well. He is showing that he is a true Heisman contender this year. He actually went 27 for 36. He passed for 414 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did have a lost fumble there in that first quarter. Halfback Logan Diggs, he played exceptionally well. He had 19 carries, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr., he led the team with 8 receptions, 124 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But star wide receiver Malik Neighbors was just behind him with 8 receptions, 102 yards, and he did not have a touchdown in this game, though. Defensively for LSU, Andre Sam, he led the team with 14 tackles, 9 solo tackles. A little recap of this game. This game was really a back and forth offensive explosion that literally came down to the last play of the game. Both teams combined actually finished this game with 1,343 yards of total offense and 14 touchdowns. The only turnover in this game came in the first quarter by Jayden Daniels when he got absolutely rocked in that first quarter and ended up fumbling the ball. And honestly, that probably could have been the difference in the ball game, because if Jayden Daniels never fumbles that ball, which granted, he should have fumbled. That was a major hit. But if Jayden Daniels never fumbles that ball, who knows? Maybe he ends up getting in the end zone, and that could have been the score that eventually won the game. So that fumble played a major part in this victory for Ole Miss. And yes, both of these quarterbacks played exceptionally well, played out of their minds. Both offenses played out of their minds. But let's just be honest, this game was not a display of great offenses, even though these two offenses are probably two of the best in the SEC. This game was a display of very poor defense. Both these defenses are truly awful. The secondaries are awful. Neither team can tackle in space. LSU, they can't tackle in space against good teams. They proved it against Florida State. And they proved it against Ole Miss. LSU, they've got to get that figured out. Neither team could really put pressure on the quarterback. Neither defense could get off the field on third down. LSU went 5 for 10 on third down, while Ole Miss went 9 for 16 on third down. Let's just be honest, LSU's going to give up points all year. This defense is truly bad, and I don't get why this defense is so bad for LSU, considering they have who I thought was going to be the best linebacker in the SEC in Harold Perkins. So I really don't get why this defense is so bad for LSU. But they've got to get that cleaned up if they want to continue to compete and win games. Now, let's just be honest. LSU is technically still in the picture for the SEC West title. They're technically still in the picture for the SEC championship, but that loss has officially knocked them out of college football playoff contention. My honest opinion, Brian Kelly is just continuing to show that he cannot win big games. He couldn't do it against Florida State 2 years in a row. He could not win this game. He could not do it at Notre Dame. Yes, he took Notre Dame to the playoffs multiple times, took Notre Dame to 2 national championships, did not win a single one of them. Got blown out every single time. So he's consistently showing that he cannot win big games. And I'm starting to wonder if Brian Kelly is the answer at LSU. But LSU's got some major problems that they've got to get fixed if they want to compete. Some other games that went on this past weekend, got Georgia and Auburn, a shocker. Even though Georgia won this game 27-20. Y'all, this rushing defense for Georgia is not looking up to par like it has been under Kirby Smart these past few years. Georgia's rushing defense, currently ranks 37th, giving up 113.4 yards per game. That is usually not something you see by a Kirby Smart-led defense. So, Georgia has got to get this run defense figured out, and they've also got to quit with these slow starts. You keep on with these slow starts, you play a team. They got Missouri this week. I believe they can edge by Missouri. That game's going to be closer than it has been years past. But if they continue with these slow starts, they run into a team like Tennessee, and they have a slow start against Tennessee, Tennessee's gonna punch them in the mouth, and they're not gonna be able to get back up. So they've got to get that fixed if they hope to get back to Atlanta and back in the college football playoff. Washington defeating Arizona 31-24. You got Tennessee getting revenge on South Carolina 41-20. Bad news for Tennessee. Their star wide receiver, Brew McCoy, he suffered a fractured ankle, and he has now been ruled out for the season. So that is a major loss for Tennessee moving forward. Oklahoma defeating Iowa State 50-20. Now that we've got last week out of the way, I want to do my Week 6 predictions. I've got 5 games listed here. My first game that I got listed here is the Red River rivalry, Oklahoma and Texas. Texas is actually a 6.5 point favorite in this game. Some facts in this game. Oklahoma, in this rivalry, has actually won 6 of the last 8 meetings. And this is also the first time that both teams are undefeated in this game since 2011. Now, this game, I believe, is going to be a lot closer than last year. I do think Oklahoma is improved from last year. I believe it can be kind of a back and forth game, at least for 2.5, 3 quarters there. The key for this game, the deciding factor in this game, is basically going to be who can move the ball once they get into opponent's territory. Who can get in the end zone once they get into opponent's territory? Because so far, really both of these teams have proven they are not able to do that. So that's going to be a big deciding factor in who wins this game. As of right now, I do believe that Texas is stronger. I believe they have more athletes. I just believe they're an all-around better team. I do like the minus 6.5 for Texas, and that means obviously I like Texas to win this game. My next game, I got Washington State and UCLA. UCLA is a 3.5 point favorite in this game. Really the key in this game is just really simple. Which team is going to make a stop? Because I have a feeling this game is going to be a very high-scoring game. It's going to be a back-and-forth kind of game. In the end, though, I do like Washington State. I feel like Washington State's defense is just a little bit better. I like the plus 3.5 for Washington State, and I like Washington State to pull this one out. My next game I have on here is Ohio State, Maryland. Little fact for this game, Maryland is actually 5-0 for the first time since 2001. So going into this game, this is really going to be a physical battle. You got Talia Tagovailoa, a very experienced quarterback, versus Kyle McCord, first-year starter. I expect this to be a close game, a back-and-forth kind of game. Yes, Maryland has the more experience. I just feel like Ohio State just has more talent overall than Maryland. I do like the plus 20 for Maryland, but I do like Ohio State to win this game. Now, my final game I have on here is Alabama and Texas A&M. Alabama's a 2-point favorite in this game. Alabama has actually won 115 of the last 116 games against unranked opponents. Their only loss in 2021 against Texas A&M in Kyle Field. That sound familiar? It could happen again. I believe this game is going to be a very close game. I believe this game is going to be decided in the trenches. Can Alabama's O-line hold up against that physical D-line for Texas A&M? Texas A&M, the key for them in this game, if they want to win, they're going to have to force or contain Jalen Milroe, keep him from scrambling out of the pocket, force him to throw the ball down the field. They cannot let Jalen Milroe get outside, or it's going to be a bad day for this Texas A&M defense. I'm kind of juggling back and forth on this game. I'm going to take Alabama -2 in this game. I don't feel comfortable, but I'm going to take Alabama -2 in this game. I would not be shocked if Texas A&M pulled this out, but every time I pick against Alabama, Nick Saban ends up proving me wrong. So that is why I'm picking Alabama in this game. But that concludes my Week 5 recap and my Week 6 predictions. I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I hope to see y'all next week.